First of all, I'm going to do a mic check. Can everybody hear? Okay. For some reason, all of the mics at Wisconsin have been like really short. Okay. My name is Louise Alcorn. I'm the Reference Technology Librarian at the West Point Public Library, and my co-presenters today are Christa of the Nebraska Library Commission. I'm about to sneeze, I'm sorry.
We're not professionals.
Yeah, can you say the rest? Sorry.
Heather Braum and Cindi Hickey. And Heather and Cindi are from the Northeast Kansas Library System and the State Library of Kansas. WebJunction.
Today we are going to be talking, I'm going to kind of introduce the basic theme for today. I'm sure, how many of you, I'm assuming nearly all of you have heard of 23 things, at least the basic concept. Okay. Okay, I'm going to talk over it just a little bit. There's so much information out there, it's silly for me to go through it in any great depth, but I am going to give you a rough idea so that you kind of understand where we're coming from. Because that is to some extent the basis of a little bit of what we're talking about, which is basically staff training in many, many iterations. And especially staff training over a broad area, which is I think where we find a lot of challenges. Okay. Again, if you're thinking about sort of generally 23 things, learning 2.0, that whole concept of finding things on the web that are being done regularly, things like the podcasting, if you were here at the previous session, and a lot of the online sort of mix and match free tools, and basically finding ways for your staff to get engaged with these tools, and finding ways for your staff to actually play with them. And again, play is a big part of the whole 23 things concept. So I'm giving this to you again as a base because we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about how it's failed for me, or at least some circumstances where it's succeeded and some circumstances where it's failed in my state, and sort of reasons why, which I think is always useful to us because when we're trying to design it ourselves, I have a big soapbox that's please don't reinvent the wheel. Now, what failed for me may work beautifully for you, but that's okay because you learn either way. Okay. The 23 things, again, I'm not going to go over this a lot. The idea was to encourage staff to experiment and learn about technologies. Again, all that cool stuff was going on. And keep in mind, this is when Flickr was new and YouTube was new. I don't even know if it was actually there yet when they really started. All of these fun things that we now sort of almost take for granted as the free tools we can use to do things cheaply and integrate into our websites. But at that time, we're all very new, and the ways of integrating them into your websites or into your training or into whatever were still new and weren't entirely clear as to how you're going to do that. So having somebody else show you, oh, you know what, all you got to do is pop your, load up these images, put them into a slideshow, and by the way, here's how you grab the code and embed it and put it into a slideshow, and I'm going to actually have you do it. The idea that hands-on experiential learning and learning how to do all of these things was so very important to get over the fear of staff of working with technology, and that is not generational. It's literally situational. They may never have had cause to work with it, but the reality, and again, it was Helen Blowers who started this along with the staff at her library, and one of the things that she was coping with was it was going to become part of their jobs fairly soon, or at least for a fair number of them, or at least it was going to be part of the services that they were offering. And she wanted to make sure that they had already experienced it and that they were already ready for it long before they were launching it for the patrons, which, by the way, that's the right way to do it. I feel very strongly about that. Don't, sometimes you have to throw your staff in on the deep end because you have no choice. Perhaps your iOS vendor or someone gives you no choice on some new thing. But whenever possible, if you could even take 5 minutes or create, again, like the 23 things, self-directed learning, where, okay, we're throwing you in at the deep end, but you can kind of play catch up. If you can just take 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there and try these things, you'll feel better, you'll feel more confident, you'll feel that you understand better what's actually going on and what's being done. And I think that's a brilliant, brilliant concept still. Okay. This is just a collage of libraries in Iowa. I'm in the center of Iowa. We have 535 public libraries, 99 counties. That's a lot of itty-bitty, little, tiny libraries with like 1 and 1.5 people running them, if even that. Which means that them getting away for training is nearly impossible. So the concept of 23 things was very attractive to us, obviously, statewide when we heard about it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about one initiative that worked really well and one that not so much. And I'm going to go through them incredibly quickly. I'm going to call this sort of the bumblebee version. Only because I just want to give you, this is literally like a poo-poo platter taster of success and failure. Because I think there's a lot more depth to be heard from the other three presenters that I want to make sure you have time for. Okay, and again, like Christa in Nebraska, we have all these little tiny libraries, and she's going to talk a little bit about how they cope with that in the statewide process. We actually did it more regionally, partly because we didn't, although we do now have some statewide functions in order to do that, it was being embraced by some of we have what's called library service areas, which are sort of regional helper library systems. They're not library systems as you understand it, like these county all has money together. These are literally support that comes from the state, and there's like basically a person and a half. Thank you. So one place where this stuff really didn't work was my own library. I want to talk about the failure first, just because I want to end on a good note. Basically 23 things at my library, which I tried with my staff, and it was just me. By the way, first big mistake. Trying to run the whole thing. Epic fail. epic fail. Did not have buy-in from staff, did not have buy-in from management, except kind of in a tacit way. I didn't have it written, buy-in from staff. I did not have time set aside by every supervisor for every member of staff to do this. And I was really just doing it in kind of haphazard fashion, and I knew that, and I knew there was a good chance it was going to fail. I was just really kind of throwing it out there to kind of test the waters. And I'm still actually working on it and bringing it back. So the fail was epic only because I knew it was going to be epic. It wasn't quite the Death Star, but it felt like it. Also, I'm going to talk about the one success. And this is a Northwest Iowa Library Service Area. Bonnie McEwen is the woman who runs this, and this is basically her experience. I'm going to give it to you very quickly. You'll notice here that this is just last fall. They did a whole series once a week, roughly. They did a series of basically webinars. We have what's neat is we have a statewide system using Adobe Connect. So at least we're all on the same platform, and that was like a huge advancement. So she's doing a bunch of these different sessions. You can see an intro to, and they did 13 things because they felt that was more manageable for what they were trying to deal with. That's brilliant. If it's 3 things, it's 3 things. Fantastic. Find those 3 things that you think are going to interest people, and also that you have people to present on, because you'll notice there's several different presenters, including yourself, on different topics. Don't take it all on yourself unless you actually have the time to take it all on yourself. This is my giant word to the wise. And Bonnie knew enough to say, I'm just going to do a couple of them, I'm going to have my colleagues do a few more, and then we're going to find some other people to do the rest of them. And it worked out beautifully. And I did it from 200 miles away. It just didn't matter. We were all in Adobe Connect. It didn't matter where we were. I think one of these people actually was out of state, even. Okay, from Bonnie, very quickly. They averaged about 30 participants. That doesn't sound great. For Iowa, that was fabulous. That was, and also lots and lots of repeats, which she did not expect. So people came to all 13 things. That was great. Came by, computer. Range of topics, dress rehearsal. This was a big thing from her. She's like, practice, 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 which is I think what Mo said in the last session. That just to have an idea of like, make sure everybody knows what to click to show their screen. That alone is going to save you 5 minutes of when you're first starting with the software. The Adobe Connect Room is what we were using. It's dedicated. There was a Google site with all the other information for it. In fact, you can go and take a look at it. It's still up. And then these little chat pods that you can do in Adobe Connect, where people could have side conversations in these chat pods about topics that came up in the chat. So somebody would repeat a question, and she'd instantly pull it over into a chat pod and say, you can go talk about it over here. And so if they wanted to discuss it, they could even discuss it even beyond the hour. So that was very cool. What didn't work, a little more marketing. She could have had more than 30 people if everybody had known. Because she didn't really care if she was just doing the Northwest Iowa or whether she did the whole state. And I think if she does it again, she's going to market it more fully. Iowans are shy. They didn't want to put a headset on, so they didn't want to talk. And often you had 6 people at one computer, and so only one person would be typing. And if they weren't like a big typer, it just didn't happen. So they weren't typing in their chat questions. And then she did a survey at the end, but she felt like she didn't quite get the right information. So she would probably redo that. Again, and this is it. Marketing, make sure everybody knows it's there. Buy-in on various levels, that was my big fail that I had problems with. That feedback loop, getting that survey information back and then redoing it. Just do and even if you do the same 13 things or 3 things or 23 things again, that's okay. Somebody missed it the first time. Go ahead and do it again. And say, maybe you missed something the first time. or maybe you weren't there that day. Just keep at it. Follow up with people, make it relevant. Don't be talking about technology nobody's really using anymore. Don't talk about Magnolia. It's gone. Don't use the same things you were using a couple years ago. But do talk about some of the cool new, Google stuff that's out there, because they're all going to, and have a few things that are just kind of fun. That's actually another one I'm going to add to that. Just have a little bit of fun in there too, because I'll tell you what, you'll keep their attention exponentially longer if you can make them laugh. So, thank you. Again, this is the Bumblebee version. I wanted to just lay the groundwork for what we're going to talk about here today. Thanks.
Okay, I am Christa, Nebraska Library Commission, and what I'm going to give you is a little history of what we've done with 23 things, leading up to what we're doing now, and like what Louise is saying, the lessons we've learned about doing it. We started our first 23 Things program actually for staff at the Library Commission. The Nebraska Library Commission, I should probably tell you, this is the state agency for libraries in Nebraska, meaning we serve any library in the state. If you're a library, we will do stuff for you. We do training, consultation, give out grants, whatever. So we decided to do a just in-house one. They were our guinea pigs to figure out how we could do this, if it would work, what would be the process. We had 4 or 5 of us doing this at this one. 4 of us on staff that were in charge of running it. Pretty much the same 4 that are still doing it, yeah. We did it in 2008. So it ran from February 11th, 2008 through April 13th, 2008. So 9 weeks. Participation was voluntary. We did encourage all of the departments, heads of departments to encourage their staff to do it, but none of it was required. We ended up, there's 49 staff at that time at the commission, and 25 of them started, so 50% of the staff decided to do it. Cool. 9 of them completed all of the things. Now that may sound pathetic, but that's 36% of the 25 that started. So that's pretty good out of who started. And lots of people did just some of them. If you completed all of them, you were entered in a drawing. We did a party and then a celebration at the end of it on Library Worker Appreciation Day. That's what went to April. We timed it that way on purpose. And the director of the commission purchased with his own money 3 MP3 players. So anyone who finished was in a drawing and they could win an MP3 player. So a little encouragement there. It was self-reported by all of them if they finished the different things, but we double-checked it, the ones that were the staff running it. And so we figured, that worked out pretty cool. We figured it out. We know how to do it. Let's go on. We opened it up statewide that fall. New website we set up. All of these websites are still available out there, and at the end I've got a slide with the URLs on them, so you can go and borrow, steal, whatever, what we did. Feel free. That's what it's there for. We opened it up in October of the next year. Oh, no, the same year, sorry, 2008, and it ran through January 2009, so we did 16 weeks. This was opened up statewide now. Any library staff member or board member or anybody involved with the library could participate. We promoted it through the Library Commission, or different ways we promote. We had our annual state conference in October, so we promoted it there by handing out little business cards we made up that had our logo up there of Nebraska Learns 2.0. And it said 23 things, 16 weeks, 15 CE credits, 9 MP3 players. At this point, we had we got some of our local associations to donate money to have prizes at the end. Prizes are always a good thing. They encourage people to do it. They get them going. Prizes and CE credits, continuing education. In Nebraska, the Library Commission gives out continuing education credits, so we were able to use that as a draw. Our Nebraska Library Association, Nebraska Educational Media Association, and ITART, what does that stand for?
Information Technology and Access Roundtable.
Access Roundtable. All donated money to us to purchase the MP3 players. They had to complete all of the things, all of the 23 things to earn the full 15 CE credits. You couldn't do partial and get partial credit. It didn't work that way. In the start, we had 165, we got some numbers here for you, 165 blogs were created, which is good. Same thing as in Nebraska, that's awesome. We have a bunch of people live in the east part of the state, and then cornfields and cow pastures the rest of the state. So we are very spread out. In Nebraska, we have about 270-something public libraries. And I don't know how many of the other kinds of, academics and whatnot. So we have a very even less than what Iowa has. So we were good for doing this, for having this many people get participation in it. We have the same exact situation as Iowa, what she was talking about, that these small libraries, the one-person libraries, they're open 10 hours a week. The librarian is also the postmaster and goes from the library to the post office that same day. And this is the kind of thing we're working with for some of these people. But we also had up to the systems librarian at University of Nebraska in Lincoln. I mean, we had a whole range of people who would participate in this. So we had everything going on there. Travel costs for the libraries to go to a training session, they don't have any money. We are actually, as the state, not having enough money to even travel out around the state to train them on things. So this was a great resource for them to learn all of these different things that we could come up with. And we totally did borrow and take what was on Helen Blauer's, the original 23 things, and used it for ours. I don't think we changed. I think we added one thing that was specific to our state for some databases that we provide for the state, but other than that, it was the same thing. Pretty much taken from there. 165 blogs were created. Over 2,300 blog posts were made by participants throughout the 23 Things program. Over 2,200 comments made on different blogs. So people commenting back and forth, commenting on our blog that ran the whole thing. And out of all the participants who started, 83 finished. That's 50% of the people who started finished. If you look at research that's been done on these kind of programs, that's insane. That is really good. We have 50% of them to actually go to the end and do all 23 things. We think the 15 CE credits was a huge attraction to them. Yeah. And you know what? That's okay. Bribery, if it works, use it. The CE credits, the MP3 players, the whatever that you can do. CE credits don't cost us anything. Our CE coordinator said, absolutely, this is worth a 1 CE credit or however many for each of these we came up with for this. Go for it. We did a session where we did our drawings during one of our Encompass Live sessions. We do Encompass Live. It is a weekly online webinar. If you were here in the previous session, it was promoted there, surprisingly for us, where we just had all of them come and we do draw names out of a hat for who would get to win the MP3 players. We did a live webinar for them to do that. So that ended in January 2009. And what happened then was a lot of them, the final blog post was all, what did you think, wrap up, what are you going to do now? Lots of people said, I wish it wasn't going to end. Why, can we do more? Why does it, can you do it again? So we thought about it, and lots of places out there have done this. They've done a 23 things program in a limited amount of time, 16 weeks, whatever, and then a year later the same thing again. Sometimes it's the same items that are the things, sometimes you come up with new things, sometimes you take an old thing and update it because something has changed in that thing for that one. So that's been done. We thought about that, and then we had this idea, and I think we also borrowed it where I'd seen it before, to do an ongoing 23 things, which no longer can't be called 23 because it's more now. Nebraska Learns 2.0 is now an ongoing program. We do a thing every month, and we started in 2009, April 2009 was our first one, and the last one, we just did one for March, is our 46th thing. So now we have an ongoing Learning 2.0, 23 things type program. One thing a month. It is not, you have to do all of them to get credit. For each thing you do, you get 1 CE credit. You can, if you do it during that month, that's available. They're all always out there for you to go and look at later. You don't get the CE credit unless you do it during the month. We don't have to do all of them, as I said. You can jump in. If you think a topic is of interest to you, do it. If you don't, wait and see what we have for you for next month. So that people can jump in and out as they want to, learning something new and earning a 1 CE credit for that month. At the start of the program, so we did it in April 2009 it started. The first thing was in May. Actually. And at the start, 47 people set up blogs or told us they were going to do it. They said, sure, sounds like a cool idea. 18 of them came in from the first program we had done, that first 16 weeks, so some were carried over. But we had 29 brand new people who had not done the first one at all. So we had more new people than carryovers. This is probably, we didn't do a survey or anything, but if that 16-week period didn't work for people, well, you know, if they were busy doing something else, it wouldn't work. We also had, at the same time as that one, Omaha Public Library was doing their own 23 Things program, so that stole a whole bunch of our people with their first one, which is great, they did one on their own. But so, yeah, that's a whole bunch of we could have had. And so that's what we're doing right now is our ongoing thing. Now, did anybody notice a trend through all of our things? Our logo up there, those cars? Does anybody know what that is?
Car
yes.
hinge.
Car hinge. Just as a nice aside, we've made this a little personal to Nebraska. Car hinge is actually a exact replica of Stonehenge, made out of cars. In western Nebraska, measurements are exact. Yeah, it's amazing.
I love the Midwest.
Yeah.
By the way, this is like the Midwest corn-fed session, just in case you're curious.
Midwest represent.
So we chose that as our theme, as you can see through all of it. Just a little side there for you. So we started out with our new ongoing program, and it was awesome. And then this is what our statistics look like. We started out great. Everybody jumped on board. People did things, and then they did less things and less things and less things. The blue line is the things. The red line is new blogs. Nobody created any new blogs after the first month. And we realized we hadn't really promoted it, which is what Louise said. We just said, here's a new program, come and join us. And we would put up a new blog post on the program site saying, here's this month's thing, and that was it. And we just expected people to come and do it, which was wrong. Yeah, we totally screwed up. So we changed and decided, we all met and said, we gotta fix this. This is, you know, people are doing it, but less and less. So now we're doing everything we can, everywhere and anywhere that we communicate with our library to promote and support it. We put a blog post on our blog. This is our commissioned blog, not just the blog for the program. So we announce it there. We post it to our Twitter account, and it also gets fed into our Facebook page. We also have, and just a screenshot of this, but we also have a statewide mailing list. Yes, library, we have to still use mailing lists. And we put it on there as well. And after that happened, things got better. Now this is continuing after the previous screenshot, and I've zoomed it in a little bit too. Now every month we have somebody doing a thing. And almost every single month, March 2010, when that spike goes up, is when we finally started doing all this promoting. And almost every single month, except for now 2 of them, somebody has created a brand new blog, meaning brand new to the program, had never been in it before, and is a new user of it. So we fixed it. We figured out what we needed to do. So you've got to promote. That's really what you got to do. Get the word out there. These libraries want this. They need it. They're asking for it. This is low numbers for us. The highest is like 8 things a month and 4 blogs created a month. But in Nebraska, that's awesome. Take this to your state and just extrapolate from what our population is to yours, and you'll get the same thing.
And specifically your population density, which is where we run into odd problems.
Mm-hmm. So the real lesson here that we learned was don't drop the ball. If you're going to start it, go with it. Keep going with it. Support it. Be out there. And this is just URLs. This presentation is being posted up to the CIL website, so you don't have to scribble this down if you don't want to. You can go get it there. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Again, I'm Heather Braum. I'm from the Northeast Kansas Library System in Lawrence, Kansas. And this is my colleague, Cindi Hickey, and she works at the State Library of Kansas in Topeka. And in January 2010 last year, we launched our own version of 23 Things. We called it 23 Things Kansas. And we actually did, what, 15 things? I think that's what it ended up being, but we kept the 23 Things name just as a brand name. How we set up our program was a bit unique. We did not do one person. Like Louise said, don't do one person when you do one of these programs. We had about 15 people from across the state collaborate online to build all of our lessons that were put up on a website. We met several times via WIMBA at the time on online conferencing to build the program, and then we launched it in January. We figured 200 people maybe, we'd be lucky, would register and sign up and be interested. We ended up with 600. That caused some panic for a few days and caused some management issues and took us by surprise. Why that happened was because we opened this up to every library in the state of Kansas, every employee, every type, school, academic, public, special. And it hit a chord with people across the state. We have the same issues that Christa and Louise addressed. Rural state, for the most part, no travel, one-person libraries, can't travel, can't do anything, you know, same exact things that these ladies talked about. We ended up with about 400 blogs where people actually did at least the first lesson when they set up their blog. And then at the end in May, we had 100 complete. So about 25%, but still, that is fantastic that 100 people kept up with this. In a lot of cases, school librarians, busy people, they kept up with this. And if anything, I think those are the ones we have heard the most feedback from, that this program meant the world to them when they are struggling with, their jobs are being cut, and yet they were able to continue to learn, continue to at least be excited about one thing that was work-related. We continue to receive feedback from other places. Can I use this program in my library or in my workplace or with my board? I know of a few graduate students, I still can't quite figure out where they found out about this, but education technology graduate students are using our blog as part of a class project, posting weekly lessons. Thought that was pretty cool. And so when Cindi and I were asked last summer to present on a recap of 23 Things Kansas at a regional event back in Kansas on, it's the Nichols Tech Day that my work does each year, where we have one day set aside to talk about technology. We were like, there's two groups of people that this would reach, those that participated and those that didn't. Who would want to come to a recap because you're not continuing it forward? The participants already know about it. So we got to talking, and we were like, what is 23 Things really about? It's about learning, and it's about learning virtually. And so what we came up with is that ultimately you can learn anywhere, anytime, anyway. And so with our apologies to Dr. Seuss, we are going to open up with a poem. You can learn in a box, your office.
You can learn in your socks at home.
You can learn in your car, podcasts.
You can learn from afar, join a webinar.
You can learn in the suds, a book.
You can learn with your buds, a training cohort.
You can learn all alone, a self-paced course.
You can learn on the phone, a conversation with a friend or a colleague, or even through Skype.
You can learn on the wheel, an audiobook.
You can learn at a meal, a group of colleagues.
You can learn from a teen advisory group.
You can learn from Fearless 15, a book club.
Oh, the places you'll go.
And the things you will know.
Find your class in the skies.
And learning's your prize.
And this is actually somewhere in the United States. Someone has this outside somewhere. I thought that was pretty cool.
So what we are trying to do with, we now have created a website called Virtual Learning, and we're trying to promote continuous and ongoing learning virtually. And because libraries do promote lifelong learning, we feel that as librarians and library staff, we should also model lifelong learning in our own development as we go through our professional lives. For personal reasons, you might want to try some things that just will satisfy you personally, that teach you how to do something new. For instance, did you know you can learn how to salsa dance online? For professional reasons, you need to learn how to start a teen advisory group at your library and don't know where to start. Change is the only constant, as we all know, so you must always be learning in some way to get used to that. Unlearning and relearning. And then finally, we need to keep moving forward so that we can innovate and be creative in our new approaches with new audiences and new types of services we want to offer in our libraries.
So why this way of learning? It's all about the access. You have immediate access at your fingertips at all times. You have universal access. As long as you have a web browser, you usually can find any way to learn. Just in time, I don't know how many people sat in the Teching It Up session yesterday afternoon, where, I'm gonna forget where she was from. I know she was from Illinois. Sorry if you're in here, but I can't remember right now. But she was talking about how instead of asking her staff to learn the software that was being put on the patron computer, so if a patron had a question, you know, they would know how to help that patron, she made them just go to YouTube. You know, just in time, instead of having all this learning up in your head, you know, YouTube has, here's how to use GIMP, here's how to use OpenOffice, here's how to use Word. There's lots of training videos there that you can get at quickly. Low cost, no cost. Webinars, for the most part, are typically free. They're available. WebJunction. How many of you have heard of WebJunction? Many of you. They have thousands of hours of webinars and information there, and there are a lot of other sites that are out there that have webinars. It's green learning. You don't have to travel. You're not copying handouts. It's all online. You have access to great minds, and you can talk to them. You can talk to great people or listen to great people that you would have to pay thousands of dollars to come into your library or thousands of dollars to travel to hear. TED Talks, anybody heard of those? Yes. Don't need to say anything else. You can learn alone or in a group. You can just do all the stuff on your own or bring a group together and learn together and talk about what you're learning. You can build your own learning network. And just a quick example of this is iTunes University. Learn all this open access educational content that universities are putting out there, and you can learn on any subject. I have to have my token cat picture in every presentation I give. So there's the fear factor for this, you know, fear of technology and fear of time. You know, money is a concern, work priorities, family priorities. I'm too old. I don't like technology. I don't see how this is applicable to me or my job. I don't like these topics at hand. I could stand here and refute every one of those, but I think most of you could do that in your own mind, and some of this has been mentioned already. So just quickly, I want to mention 3 resources that are linked on our blog. And at the end, we actually have cards up at the front that have the website that you can come and pick up. So if you're trying to scramble to take notes and miss stuff, it's on there. One is a blog post by Bobby Newman, Librarian by Day. She wrote something called, "Yes, you do have time to learn that newfangled internet. Just put down the remote." Go read it. The next one, why learning about emerging technologies is part of every librarian's job. It's by Catherine Greenhill from Australia, and it's a slide cast and a paper that she wrote. And it has all of these different points, I think 21 different reasons that overcome all these barriers I just discussed. And then finally, learning when there's no time or money to learn by the dearly loved Pat Carteret from Georgia.
Next is Lost in Translation, and we have the star of our selected video here, Brian, sitting right in the audience. And the whole focus of this section is for you to create some self-awareness about how you like to learn. Do you like to listen to things? Do you like to read things? Do you like to watch things? And once you find that out, then you can find those resources that help you learn in the best way. And we like Brian's video because he talks about sharing a blueberry smoothie recipe with people who have different styles for receiving information. You know, with this, I think your grandparents, you had to talk to them face to face and share the recipe that way. Other people he could email it to, maybe posting it on a blog. All those things are his video is another way to share the recipe. So we have the watching, the reading, finding your style, and being able to find those resources that will help you learn with that style. So beware of what your learning style is, and we do have a link on that section for you to take a little test to test out your learning styles. But find your learning style, but also think outside the box and try something different than what you really prefer, just to see what happens.
So we show me the money, what examples are out there. Watching, that learning style. You watch videos, you watch somebody do something. And if you learn by watching, you open your eyes to a world of learning opportunities online. As you go through the examples on our website, for the sake of time, we are not going to be able to show you guys all of this. But as you go through the example lists, you will notice many of our suggestions cross the learning styles we described. That's all right because each one of us do too. So follow our lead and check out some of these offerings you can watch to learn.
Reading, and reading has been the basis of traditional learning forever. But we're adding a little twist to that reading thing by offering you some samples to get you started in reading in an online environment. Also, listening, auditory is important in learning, and so we've created or put together some examples of different types of auditory podcasting, webinars, those kinds of things that you can use listening for to learn.
And then doing. You do this when you knit, for example. You learn through your mistakes. You learn through having to pull out all the threads and start all over again. For us, learning by doing can come through following a lesson to complete an assigned activity, like 23 things, or create your own project. The links that we have, you might find some things you can do and some things that you can learn.
So finally, through the looking glass, we try to talk about how to reflect on your learning and how to track your learning. By reflecting on your learning, you put that learning into the context of your own life. And by tracking your learning, you can keep track of your progress. It helps you feel good about where you've come and also helps you figure out where you're going to go next. So some of the examples, to do tracking and reflection are blogging and journaling. Discuss it with some other people or get a group together and talk about that, post it, and track your way.
So the travelers, let us know how you plan to travel. There are places on this website to leave comments. If you are going to go do this and you're going to set up a blog, let us know. If you're going to just keep a paper journal, just let us know that you're doing that. Paper still works, even in a virtual world. I think we're just about out of time, but quickly, there's our information. The presentation website and blog, I want to quickly pull up so at least you guys can see it.
And I just want to emphasize that we really place a high premium on fun while you're learning. Find that compelling piece of information you want to learn about and make it fun on your way to doing that learning.
Yeah. And all the information that we covered is on this website through this area here. But we also hope to continue this. It's also a blog. We hope to post examples of the watching, the listening, the doing, and which one am I forgetting? Reading. Thank you. Digital native here. All of it. But anyway, that's what we have for you today. I really love how I think all three of our presentations have kind of just flowed into one another. There's the concept of 23 things that started, and then out of that,
It's called CIL magic.
Yes.
Together.
One thing I'd like to point out too is Heather and I are at different ends of the age and professional career spectrum. And the fun thing about this is that I know that I can learn as old as I am, and I'm excited to see learning in the things that Heather teaches me too, as she's a younger person in the profession now. So really, this is a learning tool anyone can use. And it's exciting to see it coming to the surface now. So thank you for your time
Thank
today.
you.
Okay, so we actually have about 5 minutes for questions, and then once the 5 minutes is up, you still are welcome to come up and talk to us.
Does a one-person library mean you literally have one person in there who does?
You've never seen a one-person library?
Okay. Oh, yes.
Yes.
They wear, here are the
amazing.
hats they wear. They're a janitor, they're the story time leader, they're the cataloger, they're the cert clerk, They lead the board meetings, they do the board packets, they go to the
Reference.
city council, they do the friends group, they
Train
do
volunteers.
interlibrary ILL, they
Oh,
train
yeah, and also
volunteers.
they also pay the bills and shovel the snow. And
Story time.
yeah, and actually, and quite often they do it about 10 hours a week, about 2 hours a day. If they're lucky, they're open like a Wednesday evening, every other week or something. I mean, they exist out there. Actually, you can actually search for them. They're all over the place. We have a lot because of the sheer. If you're from the East Coast, you may not realize the sheer big
Space.
size we're dealing with, and especially, I think Nebraska has a particular problem because their population is so concentrated on one end of their state. We are much luckier in Iowa and even in Kansas, where we have several urban areas spread throughout.
3.
Yeah, we have like 6, so we actually have spread out. But then in between, there's a whole lot of not much. But yet there's a lot of people there, and they mostly spend most of their lives in one county. And so, although I have an opinion that, we don't need maybe 535, we could use maybe 400 public libraries. We do have 535 because each town has there's also, west of the Mississippi, very strong sense that your town is your center of your universe for many, this has been going, a century plus. And so structures were created for that, and thus those libraries are there. Whether that can be supported long-term, we don't know, but we're trying to help them. We're trying to say, okay, if it is going to be, we're at least going to make sure that you don't have somebody with no understanding what's going on out in the world.
Yeah, and to throw into that with the digital divide, which gets talked a lot about, I think, with urban areas, with rural areas, it's even more important
Yes.
because the
They're on
library
dial-up.
and a lot of communities is the only source of broadband internet in the area.
But I'm going to throw out there, somebody brought up a statistic at one of the ebooks things yesterday that I was sitting in on. My head was spinning by the end of the day, but this one stuck with me, which is that our assumptions that minorities, for instance, don't have technology are frankly a little outdated. And I would say rural people are something of a minority in a way, in the sense that they're not served the same way that urban populations are. And don't assume they don't have it. Every farmer I know has broadband because he can't do his job without broadband, or her job, by the way, without broadband. We have a lot of women farmers in Iowa, and the thing is that they are involved in these giant collectives, and they have to send federal paperwork on a weekly basis to the Department of Agriculture in order to maintain their status as like an organic farm or whatever. Without broadband, they can't do their jobs. The problem is the library in their little tiny community has dial-up. Yeah.
One more question, and then we'll wrap it up. Yeah.
Christa, how many people are involved in the monthly thing?
The ongoing that are running it, there's 4 of us.
Okay.
And we take turns each month, is our thing, we rotate.
And does that person grade the stuff for them to get
Yes,
credit
if
for?
it's your thing that month, you keep an eye on who has submitted, who has posted blog posts. We try and follow all the blogs that say they want to do it, and then you go and read it, and if they have appropriately done it, you don't tell them, good job, I mean, you can comment on their blog, but then we keep a spreadsheet that keeps track of, yes, all of these people completed my thing. So if you wrote it and you created it, it's your job to keep track of who did it, and then report it to our CE people to get their CE credits.
I never found fun. I like that idea.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
the
know
next
of any
month it's
system
someone
that
else.
actually grades per se, but
We
I
don't
do.
grade.
Almost all of them are like a participation, non-participation.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, even sometimes I've actually seen this levels of participation. Like, yeah, you really did. You did like 7 blog posts this week. That's fantastic. Or you did 1 in a month, and so maybe you might want to step that up. And,
It's just a matter of, did they say something that we could tell they actually looked at the thing we were teaching them and learned something about it and actually played with it? Then it can be a paragraph long, it can be 3 sentences long, it can be 10 paragraphs.
So they do earn that credit
Yes,
for it.
yes.
They need to do
all 3 of our
Yes,
states
they have to do
require
something.
accreditation.
And we offer 30 credit hours, 30 CE. And the schools took them.
Yeah, because the teachers in particular are desperate for those
That's like
hours.
3 years worth of CE, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, that's, yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing is that, a very real reason that we did this in our state was to just introduce people to learning online. So we're going to encourage them more than be grading them per se, because we really wanted them to get involved in that.
To some extent, it's a honey trap. Once you get them addicted to online web learning, then you send them out your CE offerings for that month, every month, and it all kind of grows exponentially.
Thank you all.
Thank you.